Hey everybody, so the big showcase of Ghost of Yotei has finally happened, and of course with it the controversy that began months ago when the game was first revealed, right around when I started making videos in fact, is back in full swing. So we're going to dive back into it. There'll be multiple videos covering different parts about all this, so we don't make this one big huge rambly video, this first one being more of an overview, so let's not waste any time, get a drink or a snack, timestamps in the description or the top comment, sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Man, where do I even start with this? I guess we'll go in easy and then work our way up the controversial matters. So first, the showcase itself and the discourse around it. I don't like how people are basically being unable to express dislike or disinterest in this game without being put on blast for one reason or another. This is already like a bad start into all of this. It's already a bad sign that it's going to be yet another one of those games where if you say something about it or if you're just not into it, then it implies more garbage than it needs to. It's beyond weird and annoying how there's these games where you're just not allowed to dislike what you see, otherwise you're labeled as this or that. I'm going into this by parts and I'm going to be fair as to the stuff that piques my interest and the stuff that kills it. The main reason why I loved the first game was its story. It's not to say that the gameplay isn't smooth and satisfying, it is, and of course who could forget how beautiful and picturesque the world was, but the story, the writing and the presentation is what got me heavily invested in the first game. Jin was a great protagonist, his inner struggles with the whole split between the honorable samurai and the ghost who will do anything to come out ahead were very compelling, and using an invading army as the villain and the concept of basically repelling it ourselves, almost in a way single-handedly, worked like a charm. Everything was handled with maturity and it respected its audience by not feeding into stupid cliché performances that are sadly so common nowadays, especially in villains. So many scenes were so stylish, just straight up absolute cinema. However, there were a lot of things outside of that in the first game that felt weak too. There could have been more done to make Jin feel less floaty when we move around. Better animations and control for jumping and climbing would have been great. New additions to spruce up parkour in general would have been very welcome. And after so many hours with it, more weapon variety was a must. There was also a disconnect with the world, similar to what happened with Horizon Zero Dawn. It was undoubtedly breathtaking, but it just felt like the game would have benefited greatly from working in more features to flesh out the world, make it more immersive and interactive, and overall closer to a samurai-ish Red Dead Redemption, rather than more of a Ubisoft-like open-world action-adventure game, know what I mean? Some of these elements are elements that I've noticed in this showcase. It seems like they are evolving their formula when it comes to some of these things, and of course we also got to see new weapons in action, which was neat. Things such as having some hubs to take bounties, getting paid in actual money rather than supplies, being able to camp out in the wilderness, cooking our own food, which also implies hunting and fishing ourselves. The spyglass is also a nice touch, even though it's kinda seems useless with the current system that we already had, but either way it's a nice addition, it adds to the immersion. I'm also hoping that the clue cards will act more like a treasure hunt sort of system, instead of just clues for side content. And I'm also hoping that we can sleep at camp and set what times that we wake up, etc., so that we can skip daytime or nighttime depending on what we want, like for stealthy infiltrations for example. These were some of the most prominent additions that I noticed in the showcase. But there were also a lot of red flags that at best have me a bit worried about the game and at worst have me pretty much disinterested. Like, I'm amazed at how little I feel for this game in terms of hype. And then some people like to throw that in my face and say that I'm just a negative Nancy who doesn't enjoy the medium anymore at all and is just saying these things for engagement bait, and that's not even close to accurate. I was excited for Death Stranding 2, I got that shit right away. I was excited for Atomfall, I got that right away as well. I'm really looking forward to Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, a Souls-like from a small, pretty much new studio, female protagonist by the way. I'm super excited for Dying Light The Beast coming out next month, also for Hell Is Us, also for Lost Soul Aside, Metal Gear Solid Delta, and I am cautiously optimistic for the upcoming Mafia game, and that's just stuff that's just off the top of my head. Like, I love gaming, my dudes. It's just not my fault that some of you out there. Actually, I shouldn't even refer to you here, because I bet that most of these people don't even watch my content. They just moan at me on social media, so never mind. But yeah, not my fault that some of these people flap around on the surface, just getting excited for whatever the biggest, most mainstream thing is, like, I don't know, fucking Mario Kart, Doom, Ghost of Yotei, and whatever Naughty Dog is making, and then they get mad if people happen to not be 100% fully on the train with them. Same thing happens with Rockstar and Nintendo fanboys. If you say anything somewhat negative or just show a lack of interest, you're cooked, they'll eat you alive. It isn't even people straight up calling this trash out of the gate, it's just people voicing concerns or pointing out things that they're not particularly into, and that these brain-dead shills just crawl out of the woodwork literally mad because people aren't just slurping it all up. Like, why does my lack of excitement for your favorite new game make you so mad? Just go ahead and enjoy it, or, you know, it's not out yet so you can't play it, but shit, I don't know, post about it, go goon to some pictures of it on the internet or something, I don't know. That's what I do every day while I wait for Bloodborne 2. Let's look at some tweets. Yeah, the video game industry is gonna die, and it's because of these type of loser-ass opinions. Just enjoy the game, goddamn, aka just consume product. You and the people agreeing with you are dumb. When this game come out, just don't even touch it, go back to Tsushima. Like, why are you so mad? What were you so mad about?
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
I'm convinced the ones complaining like yourself never actually played or even enjoyed the game. Just consume product and wait for next product, guys. Man, shut your bitch ass up. I ain't hear none of that. Shit, consume the product, cuz. Retarded take. Guys, just consume. Consume, consume, consume. That's all that matters. I can't even believe that I'm defending Rhino right now. Like, this guy has had some of the shittiest takes I've seen before. I think it was even on Assassin's Creed Shadows. And this just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how much you shill, how much you pass off this image of yourself of like, oh, look at me, I'm brand friendly. These people don't care. It doesn't matter to anybody. They don't care if you have like a reputation of shilling, basically, which to them is not shilling, it's being objective and nuanced, or whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter if you have that reputation. One wrong step and and you're out. And overall, this is just so cringe. Like, if I'm disappointed or tired of something, I'm just going to point it out. It just is what it is. And Yotei is a bit on and off. It uses the foundation of the first game for gameplay, which is very good. It adds more weapons, which was very welcome and downright necessary, because in the first game all we had was a sword. But at the same time, you look at the gameplay from it, and it can even be downright indistinguishable from Tsushima sometimes. I know it just is what it is on some terms, like they're both set in Japan and all that, but at the same time, the studio made the decision to take a dump on Jin's story, and believe me, we're getting to that next. We'll touch on it here, and then we might even do a full dedicated video on the matter. They decided to advance the setting by 300 years, only to keep so much of the surroundings and the statics looking the same, and the gameplay feeling the same. The thing about this aspect is that I'm not even 100% against it. I miss, for example, back in the day, sometimes we would have trilogies, and the trilogies would come out with about 3 years between them, and I was fine with that, and I was fine with the way that they reutilized assets and gameplay functions from the previous games and then just built up a few new things on top of that foundation. And that was fine, but it made sense at the time to do that because they were following up a story, and if you're following up a story, it's kind of not a good idea to have like so many years between games. Like, you can't just give us game 1 and then game 2 5, 6, 7 years after that. There's something about that just doesn't work so good, especially if it's a direct sequel with events that end on cliffhangers or with open endings. But again, the thing with Yotei here is that it's not a direct sequel. It's 300 years in the future. It's not even a sequel at all. But a thing that really bothered me was that aforementioned thing that I talked about, floaty movement in the first game, it's still here in the second game. The movement animations look exactly the same, which makes me genuinely wonder why. They couldn't get the actress to jump and climb around to change things up a notch? There's a terrible black and white video of her posing around with a sword, so why not do this stuff as well? Man, I remember back during the Uncharted days, Nolan North would go to these panels and explain how they had him motion capturing the entire moveset, even some of the stunts, and that sometimes the simplest stuff would annoy him, like a specific angle turnaround movement that players could do, which was like a quick 150 or 160 degree turn. They would put in a lot of themselves into these characters, and in the case of Nolan North and Uncharted, for example, he didn't even have his face be in the character model, which we'll be getting to, you know, the face of the character in a bit, but there you go, just an example. It's the actor's doing everything, he's motion capturing the character, he's voicing the character, he's even doing stunts for the character and movement for the character, and yet his face was not put in the game because his face just wouldn't fit, because Nolan North looked too old and too normie-ish to be the handsome and young Nathan Drake. But if you try to make the same argument now about the actress, you are done. You are cooked, my friend. How could you even dare to say such a thing? But whatever, getting way too ahead of myself here, this is for later. I don't get why they didn't change the movements and we're just getting the same moveset here. It's not the same character, it's not even the same gender as the previous character. Why didn't they take this into account? Like, holy shit, I went pretty hard on Assassin's Creed Shadows earlier this year because I felt like we should hold Ubisoft to higher standards. We can't just keep accepting slop when these games cost $70 now, and maybe even more very soon. And even they understood that the animations between Yasuke, the samurai guy, and Naoe, the shinobi girl, should be different. I hold Sucker Punch to an even higher standard than Ubisoft, and this aspect of things is already cooked. Same for the look of the characters, which we'll get to in a second, but just as a bit of a preamble, let me just say something. I understand that Yotei is highly likely to be far better as a video game mechanically, you know, as in the combat and the general world design, gameplay loop, progression, etc., than Shadows. But holy shit, man, like what the hell did they do with this main character? Like, I just have to ask why, you know? That's it. I just want to know why. I'm not even saying anything for now. I'll have plenty to say in a follow-up video dedicated just to this actress, but why, brother? Just why? Anyway, new movement animations for Atsu would have been not only necessary because of her being a woman and that alone making it something that would have been cool to see expressed via gameplay, but also because she's not a samurai. Her very form should feel different than what Jin's felt. But whatever, we're just going off of showcase footage right now, so maybe in the full game there will be more variety or maybe an explanation, so fine. Let's ignore that for now. But the floaty nature of the movement is totally inexcusable, and they should have addressed it by now. I was fine with letting it go the first game, because it was the first game. Now on to my biggest issue here. As I said just a second ago, what had me really invested in the first game was the premise and the execution of that premise. How seriously they took the story and how well it landed, because Jin's struggle actually felt authentic and well acted. It was also interesting to see his descent into the ghost throughout the game, where in the beginning it's just a means to retake the castle and save his uncle. It's not even his story, it's not his machination, it's just given to him by someone else. In fact, for a small bit after the first act, he even renounces the idea of the ghost and he dons his family armor and joins his uncle as a samurai again. But as the invasion keeps going and things become more and more desperate, when he sees that his uncle alone isn't enough to save his home and that his blind loyalty to honor would have him let all of his people die, including himself, to the overwhelming Mongol invasion, he opens that Pandora's box again, and this time he goes way too far, to the point where he's never able to close it back up.
We saved your town. Now, we help Lord Shimura save our island.
We are not soldiers.
Who killed these Mongols? Who stood against the siege? Who saved Yarikawa? We did.
You can't just stay here and wait for the Mongols to try again.
You say you are not soldiers. You are warriors. We can defeat the invaders and save our home, but only if we stand together.
The premise and the main theme were interesting, and with Atsu, immediately back then during the first announcement and a few months after that, I got a bit suspicious at what we were seeing. It legitimately reminded me of the recent Assassin's Creed games where you're just hunting down morons in masks, and that's really not a good sign. Not much more than the premise of a revenge story with a girl, just for the sake of it. A decision that in my mind makes no sense at all. It's like you have something really good that you've already got developed versus a completely new idea that's just a revenge story. I don't understand that pivot at all. It makes zero business sense, which is sadly a big problem in the AAA industry in general. People making really stupid decisions that make no business sense and then getting mad when their video games undersell even though their budgets are getting higher and higher. Higher budgets, lower appeal. Who the fuck wrote this marketing strategy? Boogie2988?
You're fucking joking, right? That's a bit.
No, you can't.
Fucking bit?
You can't get paid in the month of August for faking cancer. Are you serious?
Yes, I'm fucking serious.
But anyway, I hoped for more. Sadly though, that didn't happen with this trailer. Instead, it just solidified that the premise of Atsu's story really is just some revenge quest. It's not that revenge quests cannot be interesting though. There's a lot that can be done with additional details or a curveball that turns it all on its head, but on the surface, in comparison to continuing Jin's story, this is a really weak setup. And those rumors about writers from Anthem, Andromeda, and Veilguard apparently working on this game really don't inspire much confidence either. And of course, this is just yet another aspect that nobody can criticize about this game. I tried to, and I was told to shut up because the game isn't out yet, so there's no saying if the story is going to be inferior. And yeah, the game isn't out yet, but we can look at both premises and see that there's clearly one that's much more interesting thematically than just another revenge quest. Especially one structured like the previous 5 Assassin's Creed games where you're given some losers in masks to go hunt down across the map. This is seemingly how Yotei is going to work according to this section of the showcase.
Choosing to ask about the Oni, you could uncover a landscape scarred by fire with more bold samurai-like enemies to fight and abilities for Atsu to learn. Or do you ask about the Kitsune, might lead you to an area filled with snow and deception, enemies that ambush you, and new ninja-like tactics to study. Atsu draws cards for each clue to keep track of all available adventures. The more you play, the more the game unfolds for you.
So it's not enough that this weird little concept where your story is watered down because you're given these multiple targets and you choose which target you want first, and so then the story has to account for that. So instead of following along a certain line, it's kind of just loose out there and you go by chapters, and then in chapter X you have certain amount of enemies and they have their own specific little arc tied to them, which plays into the grand scheme of things but not by much. It's not enough to already have that screwing up the Assassin's Creed franchise, now we gotta have it in this game too. And again, I know that this game isn't out yet, but what the fuck do people want us to do? We're looking at the content, we're not finding it deeply interesting or compelling, we're finding it lacking, where the only positive thing about it is that it's more of the same that we already got back in 2020, except weaker, because instead of building up on an already established character, progressing the story of the Ghost with a far better premise, we got some random new girl 300 years in the future whose parents got killed. And not for nothing, but I really hate the Assassin's Creed Shadows vibes that I'm getting from this in general. People like to use the argument that the game isn't out yet, I understand that, but we do have the promotional material, and the promotional material can tell a lot. The promotional material for Shadows made it look like it was going to be a laughable game, for example. Then the game came out and it was even a bigger mess. Feel free to check out my 2-hour-long video on it if you don't believe me. I laid out precisely why. I didn't go into the culture war nonsense, I just talked about the game. Why is the game a huge backtrack from the previous Assassin's Creed games, and why that's totally unacceptable. But obviously, yes, I'm not saying that this is going to be a case like that. Sucker Punch, I hold Sucker Punch in a much higher regard, which is not necessarily a good thing, because if this game sucks, it's going to be bad. It's going to be a pretty bad fucking crash out for me, I can tell you that. But I also don't believe that Sucker Punch as a studio could make something anywhere near as bad as Shadows. Shadows. You know, I'm not saying that it's going to be another Shadows, I'm just saying that there's a lot here that I'm not liking the look of. And I'm concerned because I care. This damn game, which is now a franchise, was never meant to be comparable to Assassin's Creed. It was meant to be something far better and well composed, with more meaning than what we were just shown. If people can't look at this and find it lacking, then these shills and fanboys should just come out and say what they really mean. That we're not allowed to criticize the brand new Sony Interactive Entertainment product, and apparently the reason why is because it's an Asian woman. But of course, we all could go ahead and feel free to criticize Stellar Blade, despite it featuring an Asian woman as well. Which is ironic because when I criticize these aspects of Yotei, I have actual palpable concerns as to why I'm just not that excited. Why I'm kinda just sitting here thinking, okay, well, another Ghost game but with a girl on a personal revenge quest rather than with a samurai faced with an invasion. Instead of thinking, oh my god, I'm so excited, I'm shitting my pants with excitement. You know, like, I'm sorry, I'm just not a soy jack, it just is what it is. But when they attacked Stellar Blade, it was precisely because of Eve being a woman, specifically an attractive one, because of course, we're back to the age-old issue across big-budget Western entertainment, where beautiful female characters are a rarity to see. And yep, Atsu is definitely up there. She's an icon of this issue because holy shit. And again, sorry for drawing attention to this again, but I just gotta ask why once more. Can I please, can I just ask why? That's all I'm doing. I'm just asking a pure, innocent question. Why make the character look like a scowling, grumpy stump? Why make her look like Mr. Grouchy or whatever the fuck it's called over in Sesame Street? Why is there such a lack of quality control when it comes to character design these days, and why is it almost always with female characters? This is a genuine question because for the life of me, I can't understand why I'm supposed to be the woman hater for apparently criticizing this game and now specifically the character design itself, but these people creating these female characters, showing them zero respect and having zero desire for them to look their best, are supposedly what, the women lovers? This makes zero sense, especially in games like these where it's a highly fictional setting with these lone wolf action heroes who are capable of entering a fort and clearing it all out themselves with legendary combat skills and acrobatics. They are trying to create action-adventure characters for big-budget blockbusters, very likely with the intent of them becoming new PlayStation icons, and this is what they go with? Like literally evocative of someone you'd find squatting behind a gas station at 3 in the morning. This is what our iconic female characters are supposed to look like these days? I guess we have to say bye-bye to Nyx and Lucy Quo, bye-bye Elena Fisher and Chloe Fraser. Hell, even Aloy is too good looking to be featured nowadays. And I know there's a lot of people who get sus or hate on Aloy right off the get-go because of that one screenshot from that one preview before the game came out. But look at these random screenshots that I have since my first playthrough of Forbidden West. She genuinely didn't look like that during the actual game. Bye-bye to any form of memorable, well-designed female characters that have no qualms with looking objectively beautiful. Never mind attractive, like I'm not even going to go there because some morons online can't hear that word without thinking about gooning. Like they have no concept of visual attraction or basic appealing design outside of sexualization. But what do you expect? Their brains have been fucking fried by social media activists who can't answer the basic simple question of why? Simply why? Why can't we have objectively beautiful female characters in so many of these recent games? Like, what's the harm? Why must femininity or beauty always be subverted and then excused with, "Oh, what's the problem, bigot? That's just the normal realistic design, bigot." Like, no shit, but that'd be just like somebody making Witcher 3 and making Geralt look like a fat balding guy and just going, "What's the matter? It's just a realistic man." Maybe sometimes realism is boring. Maybe sometimes realism is unfitting. Maybe sometimes realism isn't marketable. Maybe sometimes we are so tired of realistic design after realistic design going on and on and on for well over a decade now that the trend is beaten to death and people would just like to see something different, something striking like we used to have in games like these. Is it because of shit takes like this from Vito? Oh, what do these people think historical Japanese women looked like? They weren't covered in makeup, dudes. Is this part of it? Is this what's going on here? Because holy shit, I could have an entire field day with how retarded this take is. Are we just to declare that women don't look good without makeup at all? They're just a bunch of ugly-ass trolls walking around with a disguise on their face? Or does it just mean Japanese women specifically? Give me a break, dude. We have a character who can command a wolf to do whatever the fuck she wants. The wolf even enters the duels with her, brother. The wolf is literally standing there behind us, waiting for us to strike so we can pounce on the enemy, and never mind the weapons that the enemy has, they're gone. They are dead. Furthermore, look at this. This woman is able to hook someone up with a rope and send them flying towards her with the strength of Shrek, apparently with the face of Shrek as well. And that's not to mention the bunches of other details such as her weapon mastery, and undoubtedly the many supernatural abilities that we're going to get from the tales, just like Jin had. And you draw the fucking line of realism at a bit of digital makeup? What in the 7 seas of fuck are you smoking? Like, the funny thing is that it's not even actual makeup. Like, you don't have to actually put makeup on the character. They scan the... It's a video game. You can make as many adjustments as you want to make the character look better, without it looking like actual makeup. You really only make an off-putting character if you want to. Like, you only make a character like Trevor Phillips if you deliberately want to do that. Plus, Jin and the entirety of Ghost of Tsushima were not meant to be actual historically accurate games. They didn't market themselves like that, such as Shadows did. They're just set in that time and they tell that tale, but stylized and with some creative freedoms to make it a more exciting and fantastical tale. Yotei is no different, and it is absolutely insane to make the point that no, the character has to look like this, otherwise realism or whatever the fuck is compromised. Compromise these nuts, man, I'm tired of this. Like, a random NPC in Cyberpunk 2077 looks better and has more screen presence than this chump. Like, what the fuck is this? I also saw some upstanding members of the Twitter community saying that this is in line with Tsushima and that Jin looked ugly. Jin didn't look ugly, like his character model wasn't off-putting at all. The post I saw mentioned this brought up Yakuza characters in comparison, which is a much more stylized game rather than drawing from realism, even though yes, admittedly, Kiryu does look better than Jin. It's just that Jin sold himself damn well. He was not off-putting and ugly, he looked a lot like his voice actor, just more polished and a bit buffer. It's also very important to remember that male characters and female characters have different types of standards. Muscles and ruggedness, for example, are things that, if used on male characters, they look good, they're desirable, unless you're playing Love and Deep Space or whatever the fuck that game name is, where you date picture-perfect anime boys. But when used on women, it doesn't have the same effect. And I'm not about to spend a single extra minute of this video going over why differences between men and women exist and why they're perfectly fine to acknowledge. Even though activists these days like to act like that's not a thing and you're some kind of monster for doing so. People using this as an example are just bullshitting themselves here, trying to pass off a normal-looking character as an ugly one just to defend Yotei's decision. And honestly, I don't get the decision either because again, Erika Ishii is not impossible to work with. Like, there's plenty of pictures online that you could just draw from, and then, just like it was done with Jin and various other male actors that get scanned into video games, adjusted and applied to the character. It's just that they decided to not do that, and go with the worst possible version that they could find or make of her, at least judging by these pictures. And at the end of the day, does this kill the game completely? I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't. Not for me at least, although with other players it's a different story. Everyone has their own limits and their own issues. It doesn't kill the entire thing for me, but it is a constant drop in the same tiring bucket. And it's just this totally unnecessary negative point for no good reason. It also adds to the red flags and makes me not very confident at all in buying this at launch, especially with so many other great games to play instead. There's so much that they could have done here. Adjustments, different character models entirely, which is no issue at all either. I mean, just look at Expedition 33 for example. They could have given us different hairstyle customization options, etc. Or, alternatively, you could hire someone else who doesn't act stupid online. But that'll be part of the conversation in the next video. Like, this is such an easy issue to solve, but yet here we are, and we can't even talk about this normally, because people get so mad about it as if it was taboo, but it's just not taboo at all. They are fabricating this issue themselves. Like, let me put this as simple as possible. Here's 2 pictures of Erika Ishii. Just go with the one on the right, instead of the one on the left. See? See what I mean? Like, is this so difficult to do and understand? Like, am I crazy for saying this? Guys, drop it in the comments if I'm crazy. Again. This is such a tiring and annoying matter. We'll be diving deeper into this matter soon, I think. At least I'm aiming to do so, though I already ranted about it so much on this video, so a lot of things will be repeated if I do end up doing it. But anyway, now let's finish up with just one more lovely argument that people have made against detractors, which is that there is no justification at all for another game as Jin, and people who are mad about it are again women-hating incels because Jin's story was done, and if they went with Jin again, then it would just be forced. There's many comments repeating this same thing, but we're gonna use this one. Jin's story is finished. We went through that emotional story with him, and I think it's really nice to leave it there, rather than adding on to something just to add it. Having a new ghost is a great addition. Whoever, new person, new story. I'm convinced that people who say shit like this didn't fucking play the game at all. Or if they played the game, it was so long ago that they don't even remember how the game ended. Or they think that the game ended in a certain very heavy scene. Trying not to spoil it, even though the game is like 4 years old by now, but there's a final confrontation in the game, and it's a big one. But the game doesn't end there. The game ends later in an abandoned temple. And in this abandoned temple, it's made pretty clear that the story is not over. Like, what do you mean just to add it? The game literally ended with him in exile as the Shogun placed a bounty on his head. He's now an outlaw. He didn't retire to raise some chickens at a farm or get rewarded by the king of the village. His work continues as pockets of Mongols still roam the island, and the second much greater invasion of the mainland of Japan looms overhead and is due to start very soon after the events of the first game. His work isn't even finished. Anyone who bothers to check into this knows this, and then it's not just that either, but there was straight up dialogue that left the ending open to a continuation from both the perspective of Jin and Yuna, so much so that when I first saw the reveal trailer, I thought that was Yuna and not some new character 300 years in the future. She also had her own scores to settle. Jin is on the run and in hiding, and the legend of the ghost has just begun. If anything, this first game was just an origin story. The sheer potential in a sequel is huge, not just because of the content that's already there and can be further built upon and the characters that can be further developed, but also because of the premise. What did the ghost do after the events of the first game? Is his uncle alive or dead? Did he get hunted down and killed? Was he locked away in a cell to rot? Was he hunted and escaped elsewhere? Was his uncle disgraced by the actions of his ward? Did he return to repel the second Mongol invasion? Did he go into hiding and the Shogun procured him to help him defeat the Mongols? Was he imprisoned and the Shogun offered him freedom if he helped defeat the Mongols? Did he lone wolf it? How did the uncle factor into all of this, etc.? There's so many goddamn compelling questions and possibilities up in the air still, and these morons are telling us that no, his story is done, and the new ghost is a much better idea. Like, gee, let me see which of the premises would people like more. Building up on previous characters and events, which were left open, with a story involving some tense wartime shit, and that could lead to having players even more invested in Jin and Yuna, and other characters as well, just as we used to do pretty often with trilogies in the past, such as Assassin's Creed 2, all the way to Revelations, Tomb Raider, Batman Arkham, Mass Effect, Witcher, etc, 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 or scrap all of that shit, pull another tiring, fatigue-ridden bait and switch with ditching the protagonist that set the brand up for success in the first place with yet another undercooked-ass, unfitting, ill-designed female protagonist whose entire shtick is being out for revenge against a few masked bandits who killed her parents. Oh my god, such a difficult choice of premise for a video game. It's like, do I want this nice, perfectly cooked meal, or do I want a sandwich someone left on the the floor. Like, come on dude, give me a break. That'll do for this video though, guys. I'm signing out and keeping up with the topic in case of future videos. At the very least, one more, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and also let me know down in the comments if there are any specific things about this that you'd like discussed, or questions or whatever. I'm down to a video answering comments too, if that would be the case. With that though, we're done here. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, giving it a like would really help me out. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.